I have also noticed on social media, especially on TikTok, those women who have African children and now they also have these cappuccino children. They are always putting these children, especially like when they go live, this child must be on camera. But the African child, we don't get to see him or her on camera. It's always this cappuccino baby and everything. This child must be on camera, and if the child wants to go somewhere else, the child must be on camera. And it's quite unfortunate because I think mentally, I don't know how to put this, but I think mentally we still have this white savior mentality. We still have this whole, and this is something we struggle with even when it comes to light skin versus dark skin. And this is why the bleaching industry is thriving so much. They're making, a lot of money.
I wanted to review this profile real quick. While she is a Kenyan woman, a Kenyan content creator that focuses her content on basically teaching Kenyan women and other African women how to navigate interracial relationships, I thought what she said was incredibly intriguing because I think this problem definitely exists among Black women also in America. But another thing that I thought was so interesting about this video was the amount of comments that I saw in here of women who were actually in agreement with what she said. Here it says, cappuccino just killed me. She laughed, but she didn't disagree with what she said. This one, he says they are in denial of their own identity and self-hatred. This one says, you are right, my dear. There's another one, it's the cappuccino for me. So they're laughing. Here's another one. It says, for them, they think cappuccino kids are very, very important. Shame on them. Okay, so, another one here says, even the Black women who are married to white men, most of them are YouTubes, and people don't get me wrong, but I don't understand the show off game, right? So so far, I'm seeing people who either agree or are just laughing at her cappuccino statement, but they're not disagreeing with her. It says, my cappuccino teenager just busted out laughing. Oh my gosh. Here it says, my two proudly cappuccino boys are laughing out loud. Nice one. Okay. Another one, it says, yes, insecurity plays a big role. Some of these Africans are really insecure about themselves and hate their skin. It says, you are so on point, my sister, cappuccino baby, on point. Real talk, not a lie. You guys. So, and then here's another one, it says, and those wigs resembling white hair too. What was so interesting to me was the amount of comments in here who were actually affirming what she said. Y'all, I'm so used to getting gaslit every time I say anything that's even remotely constructive. I'm so used to getting gaslit. Look, you hate Black women, or you're just a mammy, or you're lying. What are you talking about? This isn't happening for us. I'm used to getting gaslit. So it's interesting that I hear a Black woman, she's Kenyan, right? She's a different ethnicity. But I hear this African woman, Black woman, calling out other Africans, right? Or calling out other Black women on some of the BS. And I'm not seeing any negative pushback. That is really interesting. I would have expected her to get a lot more negativity. Now, I don't know if she went deleted the comments. I don't know. I don't know if it was the way that she said it, or if they're just there's just women in there. They just know, because you got women in there who actually themselves have their own cappuccino children. So the complaints of colorism, texturism, futurism are complaints that oftentimes come from Black women. Colorism impacts men and women, Black men and women. But for some reason, I rarely hear Black men complaining about colorism. Rarely, although it impacts them in all areas of life. Job opportunities, their interactions with the police, how they are treated in society. Colorism impacts dark-skinned Black men in an incredible way. But for some reason, it is a complaint that we continue to hear primarily from women, right? And, there could be reasons for this. Some would say, look, women are generally judged by their looks more so than men. So I can understand that argument. But I think another thing we're not necessarily talking about is how sometimes Black women can also perpetuate colorism, right? That's not to say that Black men can't. We already know that they can in some way, shape, or form. But I personally do not know of any Black men who's been I really want a light-skinned baby. But I am aware of Black women who have explicitly said, right, I want a baby with good hair, or baby with these particular genes, or kind of talking about how beautiful a cappuccino, a light-skinned baby, a mixed baby is, in some ways kind of fetishizing that, or in some ways fantasizing about that. I've heard women be more open about this. And The Dating Divide, the book that I've referenced so many times, it actually really teased out this idea, and it talked about how, colorism impacted women and how some women talked about how they were explicitly told by usually other women in their family, older men in their family, to choose lighter skinned men. This is explicitly said. And it did highlight the book, that it did touch upon immigrants. It touched upon how immigrants sometimes will seek out white partners as a way to assimilate. That can be an assimilation tactic. But I would argue that this is something that we can also see within Black America, just because, again, how do we make sense of certain industries, right? Even the weave industry, for all of the complaints about texturism, if Black women were really concerned about texturism and did not want to feed into it, they would stop buying weaves. And there would be a larger push on a corporate, larger community-wide scale to embrace our own hair. We wouldn't go and literally spend hundreds upon thousands of dollars for bundles. Like, if there was not only a huge concern for texturism, but a desire to really push against those really self-hating and toxic narratives. Like, we just wouldn't support it. We would not support something that we believed was toxic to us. But the thing about it is some of us actually believe it. And so I really appreciate her honesty, right? You know, in her page, she goes into a lot of detail about the realities of dating interracially. The stories are not glamorous. If you look at some of the different thumbnails, they are not glamorous. And so I really appreciate her being honest, and her talking about what this means, how you could be fetishized, how you could deal with people who don't shower, how you could be mistreated, how you can end up with people who have a colonial mindset. Like, she's very candid about what this means, so I can appreciate her about that. The reason I'm glad that these conversations are had, it's not about hating on Black women. It's not about trying to like shift the blame and act like Black men don't do anything wrong. Like, sometimes when you bring these things up, a person just gets all triggered. It's important to acknowledge the negative things that we could be doing to hinder ourselves so that we could actually address it and perhaps fix it. Like, if you got cancer, but you refuse to acknowledge you have cancer, then you're never going to go to the doctor and get treatment. You know what I mean? It's like, you have to acknowledge you're sick in some area before you can actually go to the proper steps of being healed, of being whole. And so this is why I think these kind of conversations are important, even if they're triggering, even if they don't make any sense. And like I said, in this sense, this woman, she's in Kenya. She's talking to women primarily who are in Africa and have a reality that's a lot different than America. But she's literally complaining about the same things I see in America, right? And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the power dynamic. Africans, they weren't necessarily enslaved in that sense, but they dealt with colonialism. And many nations today are still under a colonial rule of different white nations. And so that power dynamic, that kind of white-Black power dynamic, exists there the same way it does here. It manifests itself differently, but you still have that. And so a lot of Black women there do look at white people as a level up because they're thinking, okay, they got the cash, they got the money, they got the power. The same way, you know, there's Black women out here who look at white men as a level up. And again, this is what that book that I mentioned, it broke this down in just perfect detail. So anyways, I thought this was a really interesting video. I thought it was really, she made some really good feedback, and I don't even think she was being disrespectful. She was just being honest. As a woman herself who has literally dated out white men, dated out to other races of men, and who literally has dedicated her channel to teaching women how to navigate those situations. Like, she's being completely honest, and I can appreciate that. Anyways, I just wanted to share this with you guys. What do you think about this whole thing? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comment section. Thank you so much for listening if you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later. Bye.